If someone told me 2 months ago that my brother and my wife would be the reason I stopped trusting the two people I loved most in this world, I would have laughed. Said something like, "What? Is this some messed up soap opera?" But no, this is my life now. I'm Patrick. I'm 33, live just outside of Denver. And until recently, I thought my life was not perfect, but stable. I've always been the quieter one in the family. Reliable. Steady. The guy who shows up to help move furniture, fix a leaking faucet, lend money without making a show about it. The kind of guy who doesn't ask for much, but gives a lot. My younger brother, Jason, now, he was always the golden child. Loud, charming, reckless. The kind of guy who walks into a room and everyone wants to hear what he has to say, even if it's completely meaningless. Somehow, he got away with everything growing up: broken windows, failed classes, even wrecking Dad's old truck. My parents? They'd shake their heads, scold him lightly, then move on like it never happened. Meanwhile, I got grounded once for getting a B in chemistry. That was our dynamic. Jason could do no wrong, and I was the responsible one who everyone assumed didn't need much attention. It used to annoy me when I was a teenager, but as an adult, I let it slide. We were different people, and that was fine. My wife, Melanie, was the opposite of Jason in every way. Or so I thought. She was composed, kind, detail-oriented. We met at a mutual friend's birthday dinner 6 years ago. She was reading a book at the bar, ignoring the party behind her, and I asked what she was reading. That turned into 2 drinks, a long walk under string lights, and eventually, a wedding 2 years later. We'd been together 4 years before we tied the knot. I thought I knew her. I thought I knew both of them. But looking back, I should have noticed the small things. It started with Jason announcing his engagement to Lexi. She was lovely, a little naive, maybe, but sweet and sincere. I'd only met her a few times before they got engaged, which was sudden even by Jason's standards. He'd only been dating her about a year. My parents were ecstatic. She's exactly what Jason needs, Mom said. Someone who brings him down to earth. Lexi would laugh at Jason's jokes like they were the funniest thing she'd ever heard, even when they were objectively terrible. She made him look like a hero, and Jason loved that. What I didn't expect was how often Jason started showing up at our place after getting engaged. At first, it was random. He'd drop by unannounced on a Tuesday night with a 6-pack, wanting to catch up. I didn't think much of it. Brothers hang out. Melanie would cook dinner, and the 3 of us would sit around talking. I noticed they got along really well. Too well, in hindsight. They'd tease each other, share inside jokes I wasn't part of, even exchange glances sometimes when I'd say something that didn't quite land. It wasn't overt. It was subtle enough that I brushed it off. But then it started happening more frequently. Jason would text Melanie directly, asking if he could come over while I was still at work. I found that out by accident, when her phone buzzed while we were watching a movie and his name popped up with a message. "Still on for tonight? He working late." I remember the chill I felt. I asked her casually, "Why's Jason texting you about tonight?" She didn't even flinch. "He wanted to watch the new episode of that sci-fi show I told him about. You said you didn't like it, remember?" Her explanation was smooth, easy, and at the time, believable. Still, something felt off. I told myself I was being paranoid, that I was just tired, that I trusted her, and Jason was my brother. But things kept piling up. One night, I came home early from work, earlier than planned. Melanie wasn't expecting me. I opened the front door and heard laughter from the kitchen. The kind of laughter that makes your stomach twist. I walked in, and there they were, sitting at the table, sharing a bottle of wine, leaning in close. Not touching, but not far off. They both looked up a little too quickly. Melanie stood up like she'd been caught. Jason, on the other hand, grinned and said, "Hey man, surprise visit, huh?" I didn't say anything about it. Not that night. Not the next day. But the seed was planted. My trust had cracked. I started noticing other things. How she locked her phone more often. How Jason always managed to bring up Melanie in casual conversation. How she suddenly had new perfume that I never saw her buy. I knew something was going on, but I didn't want to believe it. I needed proof. Solid proof. And I got it, 1 week before Jason's wedding. It was a Thursday night. I'd been working late again, or at least that's what Melanie thought. In reality, I'd left early and parked down the block. I waited. I watched. And just like clockwork, Jason's car pulled into our driveway. I waited 5 minutes, then another 10, and walked up to the house. I didn't make a sound. The lights were dim, but I could hear them. Not just voices, whispers, giggles. I opened the door quietly and stepped inside. And that's when I saw it. My wife, my brother, on our couch, together. I froze. For a second, I couldn't breathe. I wanted to scream, to throw something, to tear the whole room apart. But I didn't. I walked out just as quietly as I'd come in and drove away. I didn't confront them. Not then. Not yet. I wasn't going to give them the satisfaction of an explosion. I needed to think, to plan. And the first thing I thought was, Lexi. She deserved to know. The next morning, I sent her a message. Just a simple, hey, I think we need to talk. It's important. She agreed to meet at a coffee shop near her work. She looked nervous when she arrived, worried, even. I didn't waste time. I told her what I saw. I gave her the timeline, the patterns, even showed her a screenshot of a message I'd managed to snap from Melanie's phone the week before, a message from Jason that said, last night was insane. I can't stop thinking about you. Lexi stared at me for a long time. Then she smiled. Not a kind smile. A sharp one. I know, she said. My stomach dropped. What? I knew, she repeated. Or at least, I suspected. I went through his phone 2 months ago. Found photos. Messages. I confronted him, and he said it was over. That he made a mistake. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Then why? Why are you still marrying him? She looked down at her coffee cup, swirling the foam with a spoon. Because I want to watch him burn. You're not the only one he's hurt, Patrick. I didn't know what to say. She looked up again and met my eyes. I'm going to marry him. And at the wedding, in front of every single person who thinks he's a prince, I'm going to destroy him. I sat there, stunned. Suddenly, I wasn't the only one plotting revenge. And now, we were on the same team. And that's where everything started to change. Lexi and I didn't talk for a few days after that coffee shop meeting, but my mind wouldn't let it go. I kept replaying her words. I want to watch him burn. It echoed in my head as I lay awake next to Melanie each night, pretending to sleep while wondering if she was texting him under the covers. I started to notice how cold I'd gone, like a switch had flipped. I wasn't angry in the way you'd expect. No screaming, no punching walls. Just numb, like I was preserving all my rage for something better. Something final. Jason kept visiting, as bold as ever. The weekend before the wedding, he stopped by to borrow a tool, but hung around for an hour, cracking jokes and complimenting Melanie's cooking like we were all best friends. Melanie smiled like nothing had happened. She even called me babe in front of him, like some cruel joke. I studied every glance between them now, the split-second eye contact, the half-smiles. It was a show, and I was the only one not laughing. My parents, as usual, were blind. Or maybe they just didn't want to see it. Jason was the star of the family, always had been. I was just the background character. The guy who never caused trouble. At dinner the Sunday before the wedding, Mom asked me, Patrick, when are you and Melanie going to start trying for kids? Jason snorted into his wine, and Melanie blushed, not the good kind. The kind you get when you're caught off guard. I stared at her for a full beat. Maybe not while we're still sharing her with someone else, I said, not even raising my voice. The table went silent. Dad cleared his throat. That's not funny, son. Jason chuckled nervously. Come on, man. What's that supposed to mean? Melanie spoke quietly. Patrick, can we not do this here? I'm just answering a question, I said. She asked. I answered. My mom shook her head like I'd embarrassed them. You know, sometimes it feels like you just want to ruin the mood. I nearly laughed. That's what this family thought of me. The mood ruiner. Meanwhile, Jason could nuke the whole house, and they'd blame the oven. That night, I barely spoke on the ride home. Melanie tried to brush it off, said she understood I was stressed about work. I just nodded. Let her think that. Let her believe I was unraveling while she danced around with a smile and her perfect little secret. But the truth was, I wasn't unraveling. I was documenting everything. Every glance. Every time she left the room to grab something from the store, but came back an hour later without a single bag. Every time Jason showed up when I wasn't home. I even started recording our doorbell cam and checking the timestamps against her texts. I was building a case, slowly and methodically. Then came the rehearsal dinner. It was held at a high-end restaurant downtown, rented out entirely for the occasion. Everyone was there. Extended family, co-workers, even Lexi's college friends who flew in from out of state. Jason strutted in wearing a white dress, shirt unbuttoned just enough to look cocky, his arm around Lexi like he was a movie star. Melanie and I walked in together, her hand tucked lightly in mine like nothing was wrong. She looked beautiful. It made me sick. We took our seats, and I watched Lexi from across the room. She was radiant, smiling brightly, toasting with champagne. But every now and then, I saw it. The flicker in her eyes when Jason wasn't looking. A darkness. A plan brewing. There was a moment, mid-toast, when Jason stood up to thank everyone. None of this would have been possible without my amazing fiancé, who believed in me even when I didn't believe in myself. The room applauded. He kissed her on the cheek. She smiled, held his hand, and leaned into the microphone. And I want to thank someone else, someone who reminded me recently that trust isn't just about blind faith. It's about truth. And truth, my friends, is a funny thing. It always shows up eventually. There was a pause. Not long, but long enough to feel it. Jason laughed like it was a joke. Melanie looked nervous. I just sipped my drink. After the dinner, Lexi found me outside while I was smoking a cigarette I didn't even want. She looked tense. "You still good?" I asked. She nodded. "I've got everything ready. The slideshow, the audio, even the seating chart." I blinked. "The seating chart?" "Trust me," she said. "Everyone important will be exactly where I want them." There was something unnerving about how calm she was. But I respected it. We were two betrayed people holding knives behind our backs, smiling until the curtain dropped. Back home, Melanie was quiet. She curled up next to me in bed and whispered, "You've been distant lately." I turned toward her slowly. "Have I?" She nodded. "Is it us?" "Maybe," I said. "Maybe I'm just realizing we're not who I thought we were." She looked at me like she wanted to say something. Maybe she would have confessed. Maybe she would have lied again. I didn't care. I just watched her in silence, waiting for her to fall asleep so I could slip out of bed and add another note to my file. The night before the wedding, Jason texted me. "Nervous as hell. You ever get cold feet before yours?" I stared at the message for a long time. Then I typed, "A little," but I ignored it. That was my mistake. He replied with a laughing emoji and "Classic you, bro." I wanted to throw my phone through the window. The morning of the wedding, everything felt too calm. The sky was clear. The venue, a massive hall just outside the city, was decorated with white roses and navy ribbons. I showed up in a tailored suit, hair combed, shoes shining like it was any other wedding. I nodded to guests, hugged an aunt, shook my dad's hand. Jason was in the groom's suite, cracking jokes with his groomsmen. He gave me a side hug. "Can you believe it, man?" Me, finally locking it down. I stared at him. "Yeah," I said. "I believe it." He grinned. "You've always been the boring one. Stable. I'm the risk taker. But look who's getting married first." I smiled just enough. "Yeah, look." Melanie arrived shortly after, slipping into her seat like a dutiful wife. She wore a pale blue dress and that same signature perfume I used to love. It made me nauseous now. She leaned in. "You okay?" "Never better," I said. The ceremony was beautiful, choreographed like a movie. Lexi walked down the aisle to soft piano music, her dress elegant and simple. Jason looked smitten. I could almost believe it was real. Then came the reception. Dinner was served. Toasts were made. Jason stood and gave a speech, full of gratitude and charisma. "And finally," he said, "to my beautiful bride, you're the light of my life. I'm the luckiest man in the world." Everyone applauded. Lexi stood. She tapped her glass with a fork. "Before we get too drunk, I have something to share. A little surprise." Jason looked confused. "Nervous? What are you doing?" Lexi smiled. "You'll see." The lights dimmed. The projector flickered on. A slideshow began. Pictures of their relationship. Beach trips. Holidays. Laughing selfies. The crowd cooed and clapped. Then the photos changed. A screenshot of Jason's texts. Explicit. Unmistakable. A blurry photo of him kissing someone who wasn't Lexi. Another message. "She'll never know. I've got her wrapped around my finger." Gasps rippled through the room. Melanie turned white. Jason stood up. "What the hell is this?" Lexi smiled coldly. "Truth." He lunged toward the projector, but someone had locked the laptop case. People were whispering. A cousin had their phone out. My mother stood frozen, wine glass trembling in her hand. Melanie looked at me, eyes wide, pleading. I didn't move. Jason's voice cracked through the ballroom like a glass shattering in slow motion. "Turn it off. Turn it off." He was storming toward the projector, swatting at the screen like a man drowning in his own lies. Someone, maybe one of Lexi's college friends, shouted, "Is that Melanie?" Another voice followed, "Isn't that his brother's wife?" And just like that, the avalanche began. My mom looked like someone had just dropped a live wire in her wine glass. She stood, stiff and pale, lips parted as if words might fall out. None did. My dad was frozen, trying to compute what he was seeing. Jason yanked the cord from the projector, and the screen went black. But it didn't matter. The damage was done. Half the guests had already seen enough to connect the dots. Phones were buzzing. Lexi was gone, just walked off the stage with her head held high. I didn't even notice when she slipped out until I heard a door shut somewhere in the distance. I stayed rooted in my seat. Melanie, across the table, was staring at me like a ghost. Not Jason. Me. She knew. She knew this wasn't just Lexi's revenge. It was mine too. Jason turned to me like a man possessed. "You knew?" he hissed, chest heaving. "You knew and you didn't say anything?" I stared at him for a long second and took a slow sip of champagne. I guess we both kept secrets. He started toward me, but two of his groomsmen caught his arms. "Not here, man. Just stop." Melanie stood, voice shaking. "Patrick, we need to talk." I stood too. We're long past talking. And then, without another word, I walked out of the hall, slowly, calmly, like I was leaving a funeral. Which, in some ways, I was. That was the day I lost two of the people I loved most. The day I became the guy everyone suddenly had an opinion about. The quiet brother who let it all play out like a ticking time bomb. The husband whose wife cheated with his own flesh and blood. The villain or the hero, depending on which side you asked. But for me, it was the day the fog lifted. And everything after that was harder and yet clearer. The days that followed were brutal. I didn't go home that night. Slept in my car at a gas station off the interstate. I didn't want to face the house we'd built together, the one I now saw as a crime scene. When I finally did return, I half expected Melanie to be gone. But she wasn't. She was waiting in the living room, sitting stiffly on the edge of the couch with her suitcase beside her and a stack of papers in her lap. She stood when I walked in. "Patrick, please." I walked right past her, grabbed a duffel bag from the hall closet, and started filling it. "I messed up," she said. Her voice cracked. "I was lonely. You were always working, always tired. Jason, he was there." I zipped the bag without looking at her. "You cheated, Melanie. Not because you were lonely. Because you wanted to. That's it." Tears started to fall. "He said he loved me. He said you didn't." I spun around. "Don't you dare. Don't you dare try to justify what you did by turning this around on me. I gave you everything. I gave you my trust, my home, my future, and you threw it away for some attention from my brother." She flinched. "You're right. I did. I'm sorry." I paused at the door, heart pounding. Then I left. I stayed with a friend for a week, Marcus, a guy I knew from college. He had a spare room and a quiet way of not asking too many questions. I slept like the dead, waking up only to eat, shower, and stare at the ceiling, trying to make sense of it all. I kept getting texts. From my mom, "We need to talk." From Jason, "This isn't how it should have gone." From Melanie, "I still love you." I blocked them all. Except Lexi. She texted me 3 days after the wedding. "Hope you're okay. If you ever need someone to talk to who understands, I'm here." I didn't reply at first. I didn't know what to say, but the message stuck with me. Not because I needed sympathy, but because she got it. The betrayal, the humiliation, the way everyone suddenly saw you through a cracked lens, like your worth was up for public debate. A week later, I moved into a studio apartment downtown. Small, quiet, mine. It felt weird at first, the empty silence, the absence of shared habits. No more 2 coffee mugs in the sink. No more shoes by the door. Just me, my thoughts, and the creaking of the radiator at night. But in that quiet, something started to grow. A spark. A flicker of something that felt a lot like freedom. I dove into work. Took on more projects. Stayed late without feeling like I had to rush home. I started going to the gym again. Not because I was chasing some revenge body cliché, but because I needed to feel strong. In control. I watched my shoulders square up again in the mirror. My eyes stopped looking tired. I got therapy too. I didn't tell anyone. I just walked into a downtown office one Tuesday and sat down in front of a woman named Dr. Evans. She didn't talk much at first. Just listened while I unloaded everything. The betrayal, the guilt, the rage, the numbness. I told her I felt like a fool. Like a supporting character in someone else's twisted drama. She told me something I didn't expect. Patrick, she said, sometimes people betray us not because we're weak, but because they assume we'll forgive them. That's not weakness. That's trust. And they broke it. That stuck with me. I started journaling. Nothing fancy, just messy notes, bullet points of thoughts and memories. The day I realized something was off, the moment I saw them on the couch, the silence in the car ride to the rehearsal dinner. It helped. It gave structure to the chaos in my head. About a month later, I bumped into Lexi at a bookstore. Completely unplanned. She was holding a stack of hardcovers and looked more peaceful than I'd ever seen her. She saw me, paused, then smiled. Hey, stranger. We went for coffee again. Just two people with scars, not looking for anything, but needing to be heard. She told me her family had been split over the wedding stunt, that some people called her dramatic or cruel, but she didn't regret it. He needed to be exposed, she said simply, and I needed to take my power back. I nodded. I get it now. We kept talking after that. Casual, friendly, supportive, and yet, underneath it, there was this strange sense of shared survival. We'd both been shattered by the same people, and we were both piecing ourselves back together, one breath at a time. The final nail came when I got the divorce papers. Melanie sent them through a lawyer with a handwritten note clipped inside. I'm sorry. Truly. I hope someday you find peace. I signed them without hesitation. Peace wasn't something I found in a courtroom or a settlement. It came slowly, through quiet nights and honest mornings. Through not checking my phone every 2 minutes. Through learning to enjoy my own company. Through remembering who I was before I became someone else's second choice. One night, Lexi and I sat on a park bench watching the sun dip behind the buildings. Do you think they ever really cared? She asked quietly. I thought about it. I think they cared about what we gave them, not who we were. She nodded. Then I'm glad we're not giving anymore. I smiled. Me too. And just when I thought the dust had finally settled, when I thought the worst was behind me, I got a call that changed everything. It was Jason. Blocked number. But his voice? Unmistakable. Patrick, he said, low and urgent. You need to stop whatever Lexi's planning. You've made your point. Don't let her ruin everything. I didn't reply, because I had no idea what he was talking about. But I was about to find out. Jason's voice still echoed in my ear long after I hung up. You've made your point. Don't let her ruin everything. It was an odd thing to say, because from my perspective, everything was already ruined. Lexi's public takedown at the wedding, which I now realized was only phase 1, had already scorched the earth around Jason. But something about the way he said it, it didn't sound like regret. It sounded like fear. Not of Lexi, not even of me, but of something deeper, something he thought she was still hiding. I hadn't spoken to Lexi in a couple of weeks. We'd both gone quiet after the divorce finalized. Maybe out of self-preservation. Maybe because we were trying to figure out who we were without the shadow of betrayal hovering over us. But after Jason's call, I texted her. Me. Did you do something recently? Lexi. Define something. Me. Jason called me. Said to stop you before you ruin everything. What is he talking about? Lexi. Meet me tonight. 7. Same coffee shop. When I walked in, she was already there. Hair tied back, black turtleneck, laptop open in front of her. She looked up, gave me a small, tired smile. He called you too? She asked, not even looking surprised. I nodded and slid into the seat across from her. What's going on, Lexi? She turned the laptop toward me. On the screen was a folder. Dozens of files. Screenshots. PDFs. Voicemails. He didn't just cheat, she said. Jason's been lying about a lot more than that. I scrolled. A tax document. An email thread with some guy named Rob. Something about diverting payments. Bank statements that didn't match what Jason always bragged about. What am I looking at? I asked. She leaned forward. He's been siphoning money from his own startup for over a year. Taking silent investments from people he never intended to pay back. Some of them family friends. My dad included. My heart rate quickened. Wait, your dad? The guy who helped fund his app launch. Lexi nodded. He put in $50,000. Jason promised him equity. Signed papers. But they were fake. My dad only found out after the wedding fiasco, when he started digging. Holy hell. Lexi locked eyes with me. He's looking at potential fraud charges if this gets out. So why hasn't it? I asked. She smirked. Because I haven't let it. Yet. That's when it clicked. The wedding wasn't the climax. It was just the first domino. Lexi wasn't done. Not by a long shot. She closed the laptop and lowered her voice. Jason's entire ego depends on three things: his charm, his image, and his business acumen. Take away the last one, and the other two crumble with it. And here's the thing. He doesn't know how much I know. Then why the call? I asked. Why warn me now? Lexi hesitated. Because I've started moving pieces behind the scenes. Quietly. I've contacted a couple of his investors anonymously. Sent them just enough to spark questions. That's dangerous, I said, leaning back. He's vindictive. You know that. I do, she said. Which is why I'm not going to be the one to finish this. We are. I blinked. Me? She pulled out a manila folder and slid it across the table. This is everything he said about you in private texts. To me. To others. To Melanie. I hesitated. Then opened it. There they were. Screenshots. Patrick's a boring coward. Always has been. He doesn't satisfy her. Never did. She told me that. I deserve everything he has. He doesn't even appreciate it. He's pathetic. But useful. A cold wave washed over me. I wasn't surprised, not really. But seeing it laid out so clearly, it lit something in me. Not rage. Not sadness. Resolve. I want to hit him where it hurts, I said slowly. Not just emotionally. I want to end his lies. Publicly. Lexi nodded. Then let's get to work. The next few weeks were a blur of preparation. Lexi had already created a digital trail of Jason's shady dealings. What she needed was credibility. Someone who wasn't just the bitter ex-fiancé stirring the pot. That's where I came in. We decided to build a case. Not for the police, not yet, but for the court of public opinion. Investors, clients, mutual contacts. The people Jason needed to keep his golden boy reputation afloat. I reached out to Marcus, my college friend. He worked in finance and had a background in due diligence. I showed him the documents. He was stunned. This is enough to ruin him, he said. And possibly enough to open an SEC investigation if the right people see it. Will you help? I asked. He nodded. Gladly. We built a timeline of Jason's lies, financial missteps, manipulation, toxic behavior masked as entrepreneurial risk. Lexi handled the messaging. I handled the outreach. Marcus helped us navigate the legal gray areas. We didn't post anything online. That would have been too easy to dismiss. Instead, we leaked one document to a former investor who'd ghosted Jason months ago. One voice memo to a local journalist known for writing about startup fraud. One screenshot to a Reddit thread discussing shady business founders. We used dummy accounts. VPNs, layered the drops over time so it looked organic, not coordinated. Then we waited. And sure enough, within a week, things started cracking. The first email came from an investor. Jason, I came across some concerning documents. We need to talk. Then a second. Why is there a discrepancy in the Q3 returns? Jason tried to get ahead of it, of course. Sent out a blanket email to his board calling the leaks fake news, blamed a disgruntled ex. Didn't specify which one. But it didn't matter. The truth had traction now. The journalist published a piece titled Local Startup Darling Under Scrutiny for Potential Fraud and included enough breadcrumbs that people started whispering. Then came the phone call. My mom. Patrick, she said, voice tense. What is going on with Jason's company? I played dumb. What do you mean? I just got a call from one of his uncles. There's an article. Something about missing funds. People are saying Lexi leaked it. I waited. Did she? I don't know, she snapped. I thought you might. Why would I know? I said evenly. She went quiet. This family's falling apart. No, I said. It's just finally showing its cracks. She didn't call again. But Jason did. Voicemail this time. His voice was tight. Controlled rage bubbling just beneath the surface. I know it was you. Both of you. You think this makes you better than me? It makes you pathetic. You think people will see you as some noble hero? No one cares about the truth, Patrick. They care about winning. And I always win. He was wrong. Because he was losing. Fast. Lexi called me that night. He just shut down the company's social media accounts. I smiled. He's trying to plug holes in a sinking ship. I hope he drowns in it. Not yet, I said. There's one more piece. Because I hadn't told her everything. After the wedding, when I was staying at Marcus's, I went through one of my old storage drives, just trying to distract myself. I found an old backup of our home security footage. From the weeks leading up to the wedding. I'd copied it all in a fog, too heartbroken to even process what I was saving. But now, I had time-stamped video. Clear as day. Jason and Melanie entering my house while I was gone, leaving hours later, sometimes even using my guest key. And in one clip, one horrifying, searing clip, Jason opens the fridge, grabs a beer, and turns to Melanie. "We should do this in your bed next time. You know, really mark the territory." She laughs. "You're evil." He winks at the camera. At the camera. He knew. He knew I might be watching someday. That's the kind of arrogance I'd been up against. But arrogance makes people sloppy. And now, I had everything. The decision to go public wasn't made lightly. It wasn't about theatrics anymore. It was about finality. About making sure Jason and Melanie couldn't crawl away from this unscathed like they always had. They'd built a house of lies on the assumption that people like me wouldn't speak up, that people like Lexi would quietly move on. But we weren't quiet anymore. And we weren't moving on without justice. I met with Lexi and Marcus one last time before we pulled the trigger. We sat in Marcus's downtown office, the city lights buzzing below us, as we went over the plan. Not rushed, not emotional, but surgical. First, Marcus forwarded the video clip, to the journalist who had already published the first expose on Jason. We didn't send it anonymously this time. We sent it with a name, a statement, and a full timeline. I signed it. Patrick Kessler, former co-owner of the residence featured in this footage, and brother to Jason Kessler. It felt right. Like reclaiming something. My name. My voice. Next, we timed a coordinated release across multiple channels. Reddit, Twitter, even a few startup forums where Jason's name still held some weight. We didn't flood them. Just one link per platform. One headline. Startup founder caught on home surveillance after affair and fraud allegations surface. The post included the video, a redacted financial timeline, and a Dropbox link labeled Full Documentation for transparency. By the time we hit post, there was no going back. The fallout hit faster than I expected. Within an hour, the video was reposted over 100 times. It made the front page of a tech gossip subreddit within 2. People dissected every second. Jason's smirk at the camera, Melanie's laugh, the casual cruelty in their voices. The comment sections turned rabid. Who records himself like this? This is sociopath behavior. Wait, this is his brother's house. By morning, the story had been picked up by a national startup blog. And by noon, Jason's name was trending on X. He went dark. No posts. No statements. Nothing. Then came the real consequences. The first investor, the one Lexi had originally tipped off, filed a formal complaint with the state attorney's office. Others followed. The SEC opened an inquiry. The startup board, what was left of it, released a one-paragraph statement. We are aware of recent allegations and are cooperating with legal authorities. Effective immediately, Jason Kessler is no longer affiliated with this organization. Gone. Just like that. His startup collapsed within 48 hours. Sponsorships pulled out. Business contacts severed ties. One of his biggest angel investors, a tech CEO with a large following, posted a thread titled, "How I Was Duped by a Grifter in a Suit." Lexi sent it to me with a champagne emoji. But it wasn't over. Because while Jason's empire was crumbling, I still had one final thread to pull. Melanie. After the initial wave of chaos, I reached out. I hadn't spoken to her in weeks. Not since the divorce finalized. I didn't know her anything. But I wanted her to see what we'd done. I wanted her to know. We met in a neutral place. A park halfway between our old house and my new apartment. She showed up in sunglasses and a black coat, like she was trying to blend into the background. I didn't sugarcoat it. I posted the footage, I said. She didn't speak for a moment. Then she took off her sunglasses. Her eyes were red. "You really hate me that much?" she asked. "No," I said. "I don't hate you. I just stopped protecting you." She looked away. "I lost my job this week." Someone forwarded the video to HR. They said it was a question of integrity. I've been fielding calls from family all day. My mom thinks I need therapy. My dad won't even speak to me. I nodded slowly. "That's rough." She winced. Do you feel better now?" "No," I said honestly. "I feel done." She bit her lip, then asked something I didn't expect. "Was it ever real? Between us?" I studied her face. The face I once loved. The face that lied to me. "For me it was," I said. "But I think you love the life more than the person." She didn't deny it. We didn't hug. We didn't cry. We just parted ways. She disappeared from the city a week later. Moved back in with her parents 2 states over. Last I heard, She was working at a small legal firm under a different name. She blocked me on everything. I didn't care. Jason, meanwhile, tried to fight back. He went on a podcast a month later and tried to set the record straight. He called the footage misleading and said the financial accusations were orchestrated by bitter people with a vendetta. He blamed me. He blamed Lexi. He even tried to blame the media. But the damage was done. The host cut the episode before it even aired. The clips that did leak made him look unhinged. Desperate. A man cornered by the consequences he'd never expected to face. His accounts were drained by legal fees. His reputation was scorched. The family who once shielded him? Silent. Mom called me once. I let it ring. Months passed. I poured myself into rebuilding, but not in the way people think. I didn't try to replace what I lost. I didn't jump into a new relationship or chase validation. I took long walks. I saw Dr. Evans weekly. I started painting again, something I hadn't done since college. I made a habit of eating at this quiet diner every Sunday morning, alone, by choice. And slowly, peace returned. Lexi and I stayed in touch. No labels. No pressure. Just two people who understood each other's scars. One evening, she came over with Chinese takeout and asked, "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if we hadn't said anything? If we just walked away?" I thought about it. Then they would have won, I said. And we'd still be bleeding in silence. She smiled. I like this version better. So did I? I thought revenge would feel loud, explosive, triumphant. But it wasn't. It was quiet. It was surgical. It was the slow, steady reclaiming of power stolen from you one lie at a time. And in the end, it didn't make me whole again, but it made me free. And for the first time in years, I wasn't the one left cleaning up someone else's mess. I was the one who burned the whole house down.